Welcome. Well, for today, we're going to have the demonstration of the Docker Compose. Well, first we are going to start with the bugs that we have in the Bounties board. Remember that we're going to have a new mutation in the next weeks about which are the bugs that we have to prioritize. But right now we have only the gate.io delay and update total balance. I think that Big is trying to work on this, but we don't have so much bugs. It was a very good end of the year. The idea for today is to show you how to run multiple bots with Docker, and that will also allow you to understand how to build the image, how to understand which is the image that you have to build based on your architecture, how to start and stop multiple bots, set up the passwords, the configuration files, all that stuff. So let's get started. First of all, for example, if you are running it in your Mac OS system, or if you have Mac M1, for example, you have to know that your architecture will be like ARM. And if you are running, for example, a computer that has an Intel processor, your architecture will be AMD 64, or also you can check the architecture probably in the about this Mac or system information of the system. So I am in the Mac, so I downloaded the version of Docker that is for that, and I also have to build my own image to run there. So, for example, the first thing that I have to do, because I am Mac, is to start Docker Engine, the Docker desktop. Probably in Ubuntu and Linux, you don't have to use the Docker desktop. You can just use the Docker. Yes, 5 stars, 10 stars. So you can just use the Docker daemon that is running in the background, and you don't need this fancy UI. You can just do all from the command line. But well, we are going to use this because we are in the Mac. So okay, now we have like Docker running. Let me. I will close this. Okay. So we have here the Docker desktop application. Carlito, can you confirm me if you are seeing the Docker desktop? Because I'm not seeing. I don't have feedback if it's if you can see the screen okay or not. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Carlito. So here we are seeing like all the containers that we have, the images that we run. For example, I have some images of Airflow, SOCAT, Gateway, PC Admin. Well, there are a lot of different images that I was playing around. And then you have the volumes. The volumes are like, for example, if you want to share some information that you have in your computer and you want to persist that information. So for example, I don't know, you have a database that you want to use with a bot, but when you shut down the containers, because when the container starts and you have all the things running inside the container, when you kill that container, all the information is lost. So probably you don't want that. You want to persist the information in some way. So there are two ways to do it. One way is to use a mount, and the other way is to use a volume. When you are using a mount, you have like a folder from your your file system directly mapped with a folder inside of the container that you are going to run. And if you have a volume, it's very similar. The difference is that there is a stored in another place, and it's called volume, and you can reuse the volume in different containers that you're going to create. So one important thing is remember that if you have a lot of volumes that you don't know for what they are, you can delete them. In this case, I don't have anything that is important, so remember to delete all these all the information that is like cached here or running in the background, or I don't know, like store that you don't need because it's going to consume memory for you. The CLI command is docker prune. Search for docker prune and you're going to see that. So well, now let's see how we can construct that docker file. I already created an example for you. I created well, let's first check how we can create the docker image. So if we are here in the main repository, you can see that here you have two docker files. This says docker file and this docker file ARM. So if you, as I mentioned, if you have the ARM architecture like I have, you will need to use this docker file .arm, and if you have the normal docker file, you don't have to specify. If you have AMD, you don't have to specify which docker file you need to use. And to create the docker image, what you have to run is docker build. Here I have the command docker build. This flag F is to select which is the file that you want to use, and then to build the docker file, and this docker file ARM is the one that I'm going to use. And then this flag T is the name of the tag that you're going to use to tag your image. In this case, I call it Hamibot/Hamibot semicolon ARM and then a dot. This is to build the image. So I already built it, so this is not necessary, but this is how you can build your custom image. Then once this is ready, you're going to have your image available like in the Docker desktop, and also you can use your image. When you have your images like in local, the first thing that when you try to run a container, what Docker is trying to check is going to check if that image is in your local machine, and if it's not in your local machine, it's going to check if he can get the image from the Docker Hub. So as we are building this image here, this image will be local, but it's not going to be in the Docker Hub. We can push it if we want, but you have to create an account and all that stuff, and that image will be public. Or if you want to do this, for example, suppose that you create a custom strategy and you don't want to share your custom strategy, but you want to be able to deploy your bots in a smooth way, you can build your custom image like locally, and then you can upload your custom image to a private registry. For example, AWS has a registry that is called ECR. So in ECR, you can upload, for example, you are working, you create a new strategy, okay, I would like to upload this new version. So you can upload that version to ECR and then deploy the new version in all your bots. So that's one of the things that you can do. So this is building right now, and also now I'm going to show you the script that I prepared. So here we have cd that work handle demo. No, sorry. Custom Docker. This one. So here I add this, and I also found some things by doing this, because the last video that I uploaded was using an older version of Hummingbot. Yesterday before this meeting, I tested that everything was working properly, and I found some issues that probably I can create a bug. Some community member can work on this. I don't know if Memento is over there, but I think that this is one of a good task that Memento wants to do, because you can do a lot of tests to check it. So basically what I have here is this. I cloned the the create SH, the start SH, and the update SH commands that you can find in our webpage in docs.hummingbot.org. If you go here, you go to installation, Docker, you will see that the installation asks you to download these files. As you can see, for example, this is the create.sh file that you are going to download. And well, in macOS you have to use curl instead of wget, but it's the same. This is the same script that we are using. So with that script, what we are doing is creating a new image of our bot, all that stuff. The thing about this is that every time that you want to create a new bot, you have to follow all the things, all the stuff, and probably you have the information of the files of the bot that you want to run, and you don't want to do this every time that you have to do a new deploy. So, but you can use this create.sh to create the first version of the file directory that you will need. For example, this one was created by this script, and then once you have this structure, then you can use this structure to use in the Docker Compose. So just to make a quick recap, if you run create.sh, all the files that you need for the Docker container will be created, and then what you have to do is to change or add the configuration files of the strategy that you need inside, the scripts that you need inside, and all the things that you need inside that you want to include in that container inside this file structure. Remember that here you can upload the configuration of the gateway, well, the certificates, the configuration of Hummingbot, all that stuff. Which are the things that you are going to need, like, to run this strategy with auto start? Because this Docker Compose, the idea to run this Docker Compose is to auto start our bots. For example, we can define, I don't know, 10 bots and run Docker Compose up and automatically run 10 bots. And they start all running with the strategy that you assign to them. So, which are the things that you will need in order to do that? First of all, is to have the password verification. So, to have the password verification, the first thing that you have to do is to create a password in a client. For example, you open a client with that create.sh, that then you introduce the password, and then you will have this encrypted default JSON, or this one has a difference that I found, or this password verification. So those are the two ways to like authenticate the client with the password. I found that in macOS I get this password verification, but when I run the AMD version, I get this encrypted default JSON. So this is one of the things that we have to understand why it's different, how we can unify the name of the file, all that stuff. But well, if you are running with AMD 64, you will have this encrypted default JSON, and this is a file that you should, if you want to have the same password in all the clients, you will need to copy this default JSON to all the clients that you have, or have a single folder that has the password, and you just copy that conf to that place. The next thing that you will need in order to run the bots is the configuration of the strategy. So here I have this conf pure market making one, that is one of the strategies that I'm going to run. It's a pure market making, a simple pure market making. And as you can see, I have here at this level, at the configuration level for AMD, and I have the same but inside the strategies for ARM. So this is the second issue that I found. The ARM needs to have the configuration file inside the strategies, and the AMD needs to have the configuration file inside the hummingbot.conf. This is another issue that we should be fixing in the code base, and we're going to create an issue for that. So all that mention that those are the only things that you need to have in order to run the bot and how to start the bot, plus all the file structure that you need. That is the common information that you're going to need, the conf global, the conf client, all that stuff. So with all that said, let's review the Docker Compose YAML. So the Docker Compose YAML, in this case, I'm only having like two services. There are the two bots. In the example that you have in YouTube that I created, I also add a Postgres database that you can simply add this as a service. You can add a database as a service, and then say, for example, image will be equal to Postgres. Well, I don't know the name of the image, but then you have to add that as a service. And if you want to link the bots to that database that you are creating, you have to change inside of the conf client, which is the database that you are going to connect. And remember that you have to build a custom Docker image with that dependency included. There was a PR that was adding the Psycho PG2 as a dependency, but they had some failures. But we should be merging that in the code base and add that dependency, because it's not so much different to have that dependency or not. So the next thing, let's review now how we are defining our Docker Compose file. So first, I'm calling this like bot1. You can call it as you want. For example, you can call it, I don't know, having bot1 or whatever you want. In this case, I call it just bot1. Then you have defined the image that we are using. In this case, I created an example with AMD and one with ARM to show you two things. First of all, the difference between the file structure, because if you follow my instructions and you have a different architecture, probably you're going to have a problem. And that is, we don't want that. We want that you can create your bot without any problems. And also to show you the CPU consumption of running an AMD image or running an ARM image if my computer is ARM. And probably you can test this in your computer and see if that happens or you have a similar issue with that. It's normal that the CPU consumption of an AMD image running my ARM has much more higher CPU consumption, because we have to emulate the architecture to run that image. So it's one of the expected things. Well, the next thing after defining which is the image that we want to use is define environment variables, because when Honeybot starts, if it has these environment variables, it will use them to auto start the bot. So in this case, the first thing that we have to define is the config file name, that is conf pure market making one.yaml, and the second thing is the password. In this case, I just put an A as a password to make it easier and to don't reveal my own password. Well, with these two things, this password has to be the same password that you have encrypted here or encrypted in these other files, the bot number 2. This has to be the same. Another thing that you can use to don't expose the password here is to use a secret, and you can store the password in a secret in this same file directory, and then use that password as a secret. That's another thing that you can do to don't show your password like this here. So also you can use an env variable. There are a lot of options, but the idea is not to show you like how to manage your security. If not, it show you how to use this, and then it's up to you how you manage your security. So the next thing that we have to this will use this image with this configuration with this strategy configuration file, and with this password we'll start the client. Wait a second, because I'm a little bit sick. So the next thing is to map these folders with the containers that we are going to create, because inside the container that is running, we have to we need to have access to the strategies, the configuration file of strategy that we are using, and the password that we are using, and all the other files. So what we are doing is like mapping. Check that this syntax is very easy. We are saying, okay, inside Hummingbot files one, that is this one, we want to map the Hummingbot conf to the conf. Inside, this will be like inside the container. Logs, conf, and data inside the container. After that, these are like things to allow the bot logs and the terminal output and the ft open. These are things that we need to use because as Hummingbot is running in a terminal, we need to add these configurations to don't have any issues with the setup. If you remove this, you will see that you will have an error when running Hummingbot. But don't worry about this. You can change the max size of the logs and that stuff. But don't worry much about this because you can just copy this and use it, and don't worry. Well, the second bot is just the same. It's a copy of the other one, but the only difference is that the image here of Hummingbot is using the image that I am currently building, that is semicolon ARM, that should be ready right now. As you can use if I run Docker images, I can see Hummingbot ARM created 5 minutes ago, and this is the size of that image. And also, if I go to the Docker desktop, I think that is here I have the Hummingbot ARM less than a minute ago. It's like a little bit delayed, but well. So then I am defining this ARM image that I'm going to use here, and then the config file name will be the same because I copy just the same strategy that I'm going to use. Sorry, is here strategies. I just copy the same strategy, and the password is the same. The only difference here is that I am mapping the volumes to the next bot. This will be like the bot number 2. And remember that if you have this configuration or this setup, inside the data folder, you're going to have the SQLite database here. So it will be like outside the container. And when the container starts again, you can use the same database. But if you are connecting to a single database, it will be just one database. One important thing is that if you are using just the same database, remember that you have to use different config file names for the strategies. Because when the bot starts, it requests to the database that is connected, okay, which are my saved states for this configuration file. And the saved states shows you the orders that you have in the market before you stopped the bot. So if you are using the same 2 different bots or more bots with the same config file name, you are going to have an error there, and you don't want that. So use different config file names if you want to use the same database. And then all the other things are like the same. So well, to run this, it's very easy. You only have to write docker compose app, and I will use this flag -d, that is detach, so I don't have like the output in this console. But you're going to see that now it creates the network. The network is going to have the 2 containers, and the 2 containers are created. If we run, for example, docker ps, we're going to see the 2 containers here, the demo bot 2.1 and the demo bot 1.1. And for example, if we want to attach one of the terminals and enter in one of the bots, we can just do docker attach multiple bots demo bot 2 like this. And here we are inside that terminal, the terminal of the bot, and we are seeing that it's running the pure market making strategy. Remember that if you want to exit a terminal that is running in a Docker container, don't write like exit or Control C, because that will stop your bot, and you don't want to do that. So what you can do is to run Control PQ or Command PQ, I think. Wait. Because I have, I close it. That is what you don't have to do. I close the VS Code. Okay. Well, we are here. Well, I closed the VS Code, but it's what you have to do. You have to run Control P, Control C, but I have a new keyword. And, well, as you can see, this image is in use, and this image is in use. But let's check the containers. So here we have the two containers running. This is the multiple bots demo. That is the thing that we are running. If we have like 10 bots, we will see the 10 bots here. Here, as you can see, as I mentioned, I created this one with MAD64 and one with ARM. Here it says image may have a poor performance or fail if run via emulation. This is why we are using an image that is AMD64. And let's check what we can have from here. One thing that we can have is, for example, opening a terminal. This will be, here we are like inside the container. So if we run ls, you will see that here you have all the directory of Hummingbot. So you can inspect whatever you want from Hummingbot from here. Then other thing that you can do is to, for example, enter here, and here you are going to see like the terminal running of the bot. This is a cool thing, but I can never interact with it. It's just like a screen or an image. If anyone can interact with this, can be awesome, because you will be able like to manage the bot from here, from the Docker desktop. But it's not working, for me at least. I don't know if anyone is able to do this. But well, you can see the status of the bot and the stuff. Another thing here, you can inspect the environment variables that you're using. Well, the mounts that you have. As you can see here, that I mentioned the mounts that you have is where is the here you have the volumes. For example, gateway conf has these volumes, and if you check in your computer, you will see that when you have a Docker inside var lib Docker volumes, you have there all the volumes that Docker is using when you define them as a volume. So that's another important thing. And the last thing that I would like to show is the stats. For example, here you can see how CPU this container is consuming. In this case, this CPU is consuming 6%, 13%, 6%, 4%. Well, this is the memory, the CPU usage that this instance has. Remember that in this case, there are two instances that are using the same resources to use the bot. So well, that's, for me, it's not ideal that you run multiple bots in the same machine, because they are going to fight for the resources. But well, for me, it's better to deploy, for example, a Kubernetes with one instance per bot. But well, that will depend also in which is the capital that you are deploying. If you are deploying, I don't know, $1 million, you're not going to use the same machine for all the bots, because you are managing $1 million. If you are managing, I don't know, 1K, probably you don't want to create one instance for each bot, because it's too expensive. So well, that will depend up to what you are doing. So well, so as we can see here, the memory consumption is like 7% right now. And if we check now the same but for the AMD bot, we can see that the consumption is 2631 CPU usage. So it's much more higher when you are running a bot or a container that is not in the same architecture of your computer. So for all the ones that has Mac M1 or some computer with ARM, I strongly recommend you to build your custom image with ARM or clone the image that is for ARM, because if you run just the create.sh script, you 45% is insane. So if you just run create.sh, it will use the normal image that is for Linux or AMD, and it will be consumption a lot. You will have a CPU consumption of much more higher than the one that you can have if you just run the image that is for your architecture. So well, that's essentially all. As you can see, the two bots are running. One thing that is a con of using this is that if you want to stop the two bots right now, there are two ways. One way is to enter in each terminal and run stop, and the other way is to use Telegram integration to stop the bots. And the last way is to run, for example, in this VS Code, we can run just docker compose down, and this will kill the two containers. This is a problem because check that the AMD is like it doesn't want to stop, and the ARM stops in a while. But well, this is a problem because we killed the two containers, but we didn't cancel the orders. We didn't do anything because we just shut down the containers. So probably the best solution for this is to use. We are working on a PR. Feel free to review this PR. Probably we are going to have some changes, like adding the brokers to another repository and use a submodule to import the brokers. That is one of the things that we are probably going to do, because as for example the gateway, we want to also remove the gateway from the repository, because for me it's not necessary to have the gateway inside the repository, and also it has more consumption of memory every time that you clone the repository. So we are going to probably remove these brokers from here, but this with this PR, you're going to be able to have an executor that will be, well, one of the things that you can have a headless executor without the CLI, and the other thing is that you can send commands through the bot from a web interface. Like for example, start with this strategy. So one of the deployments that you can have, if you don't want to go to Kubernetes, is to have a Docker Compose that creates all the containers for you. You don't have to pass the password verification. Only the strategy that you want to run, you just pass the password verification, and then once you have all the containers running, you are going to be able to see all the different containers that you have in your communicating with your broker, and then in the UI you can say, okay, I want to start this strategy in this broker, I want to start the other strategy in this other broker, and then you can manage multiple bots from a web server or something like that. So I think that this will be very cool to improve the UX for the users that are not so tech, and they want to just run the containers with a UI, and you don't want to create or manage your containers from the CLI. So I think that is a very good improvement, this one. But well, it's under review, we are testing, so feel free to test the solution, test if it's working for you, what you want to improve from this. Well, remember that probably this folder is not going to be included here. It's going to be in another repository, and we can import it as a submodule if you want to do it with a command, something like that. So well, that's all for today. We covered the how to use the Docker Compose file. I don't have access to YouTube because I'm not connected, but Yeah. Well, what I'm reading right now the community call chat. What Soothsayer is saying is correct because you mean Soothsayer just if you want to use the Docker. For example, if you want to use that container to create another container of the gateway, for example, because the docker.sock, if it's not mapped inside the container, you are not going to be able to use that to use Docker inside that container. So it's right what Soothsayer is saying. But well, in this case, I'm not using Docker, but I have that annoying message that he's saying. So well, there is any other question? Let me see on YouTube because I am only seeing the questions on Discord. Okay, well, okay, there are no questions here, I think. So, well, that's all for today. I hope that you enjoy and it's useful for you. So, well, thank you very much for joining and see you next week.